Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 8 of Wolverine, written by Saladin Ahmed and art by Martin Coccolo. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens up right where the last issue left off, with Romulus completely beating Logan down. And as Romulus continued his assault, Wolverine continued his narration saying, "I'm on my back foot against an old enemy who's learned some new tricks." Romulus, a sleazebag older than Rome, has harnessed the power of an impossibly powerful ancient earth spirit called the Adamantine. The Adamantine wants to rid the world of adamantium, which it considers to be something between blasphemy and identity theft. It's been turning adamantium-wielding villains into golden-eyed zombies, using them to murder scientists and torch labs. But whatever it's done to Romulus is different. It's his eye staring me down. So as Logan lay badly beaten, Romulus delivered a mean kick to Wolverine's ribs as he said, "You and I weren't made for this world of endless legislation and artificial food. We're beasts, warriors of tooth and claws. Riding the world of adamantium is just the start. With the adamantine's power, I will remake the earth. Bring it back to the age of myths. An age of bloody glory and strength of arms. An age fit for men like us. Yet at every turn, you've sided with the artifice and weakness, tending to the wounded and letting enemies escape, befriending monsters you should slay and defending scrawny scientists. You've proven you aren't worthy of the Adamantine's vision, but maybe your daughter is." Following that dialogue, Logan was all but defeated as he continued his narration and said, "My claws suddenly retract on their own. I can feel the power of the Adamantine creeping into my bones, despite my fighting it." Romulus was half right. I don't give a damn about his little sermon. I'm focused on survival right now, and one thought keeps going, Laura. This thing wants to rid the earth of adamantium. If I fall here, she'll be the next target in its path. The thinking part of me says she can handle herself, but the animal in me snarls. And in a fit of rage, Logan ripped himself free and lashed out at Romulus and shouted for him to stay away from his kid. Now this prompted Romulus to say, "Rage all you want, whelp, you can't resist the Adamantine's power." And like the goat Wolverine is, he shouted back and said, "Over 1,000 years old, and you still never learned to shut your mouth," as he ran his claws through Romulus's mouth. With blood flowing out of Romulus, he cried out and said, "No, I am the worthy one." And just like that, the once one-sided battle drew to a stop as the ancient being dropped to the ground. So with Romulus defeated, the Adamantine removed itself from its champion and stated, "Disappointing, this one was not worthy of our gifts after all. But you champion, you may be." And at that moment on floating spare in the sky, and let out a massive amount of light as it continued to say, "Many champions have claimed to be one with their weapons, but you are truly united with yours. You are both wielder and weapon. And you cut down our avatar to save what mattered to you. Animal savagery with heroic purpose. False metal with true spirit. You are something new. Is that what this age needs? Tainted heroes made of tainted metal? Men who are also weapons. Now that we have been reawakened, we must know our purpose in this new world. And to this world we must make war in it ourselves." And with that out there, the Adamantine took the form of a warrior and stood before Wolverine. Now, following these turns of events, Wolverine's eyes shoot open as he realizes that the Adamantine finally has a body to go with its name. Because from his perspective, it makes it easier to kill. Or at least that was what he thought. Because when Wolverine went to attack it, the Adamantine smacked the crap out of him with its shield. So with Wolverine back on the floor, the Adamantine went on to say, "Our contest will come soon enough, but not this day. First we must learn the truth of this new age. What it is to live in it. What it is to kill in it. And then, and only then champion, we will return to finish this." And just like that, the golden metal god disappeared into the earth, leaving a beaten Wolverine behind. So with the Adamantine gone, Logan continued his narration and said, "The Adamantine's head games made me feel like I was in the center of the earth, but in reality, it's a short climb back to Laura." And once he made it to the top, Laura was extremely happy to see him, and said, "These four just collapsed a few minutes ago. And they seem to be back to normal. Good thing too, because I'm on my last legs. What happened down there? Where's Romulus?" And to that question, Wolverine responded by saying, "What happened is that I got my ass kicked out of me, but more or less came out on top. But the Adamantine got away and it took Romulus with it." Now this caused Laura to shout out and say, "We've got to go after it, then whatever that thing is, it's got a body count." But this overly tired Wolverine just responded by saying, "It ain't that simple. Catching scents and checking satellites won't cut it here. This ain't just some guy in a costume. It's a force of nature. I do have to go after it. But that ain't happening today. like you said, last legs. So with that said, the question of what to do next is put forward, to which Logan replied with, help the survivors here. Leave an anonymous tip with the feds to pick up this lot. And as to the rest of it, I don't know yet. I've been reacting too much these past few months. Need to remind myself what it's like to think about my next move. Then, soon after, we fast forward to the outside with the team reuniting, and once together, Kurt states, the Blackbird sensors didn't lie, our beloved Wolverines are returned to us safe and sound. And then Kurt went on to say, we heard gunfire and screaming, and then every emergency responder in Arizona showed up. What happened in there? To which Logan responded by saying, that's gonna take some explaining. But it looks like you managed to keep things cool with Leonard here. But with that statement out there, Kurt just kept it real and said, I didn't really do much, just talk to him. The boy that's buried in that monster, he's closer to the surface than ever, and that is his doing. And with that said, for now, the story of the Adamantine comes to an end, as we transition ahead to something new, something dark. And this part of the issue opens with a Wolverine narration saying, I woke up too slowly, and that's the first sign that something's wrong. I'm an animal, I don't do the sleepy-eyed, leisurely yawn thing. I snap awake. Which means I've been drugged. That ain't easy to do. Sedatives does that'd kill a horse barely give me a buzz, thanks to my healing factor. Which means I've likely been drugged by someone who knows me. So with his claws officially out, the narration continued to narrate, I can figure out who, once I get out of here. The room's some kind of old industrial space repurposed into a cell. The door should be easy enough to cut through. Maybe they don't know me as well as they think. Leonard, the Wendigo, ain't here. But his scent tells me he is somewhere nearby though. This means whoever ambushed me took the kid too. That ain't a good sign. So with one door down, Wolverine continues to narrate saying, I try to recall how I got here. The last thing I remember is Arizona. I said goodbye to Laura and Kurt and set out to try and track down the Adamantine. Not that I've got any leads. Crashed at a cheap no-questions motel outside Taos. I was starting to nod off watching the tube. Gas. Somebody must have gassed us with something strong as hell and odorless even to me. My captor definitely knows me then. Which means they know it's a bad idea to piss me off. So they're either desperate or out of their fucking mind. And out of a purple gas emerged Arcade, telling Logan that his audience awaits. So, out of reaction, Wolverine lashes out at the enemy before him, only to figure out it was a hologram. So with Wolverine unable to do anything, he then continues to narrate by saying, should have realized right away Arcade's popcorn and gun oil scent wasn't there, but he's got a way of pushing my buttons. Little Creep sees himself as the ultimate carnival barker, and he gets off on sticking folks in death traps for his version of entertainment. So in an outburst, Wolverine shouted out, where's the Wendigo, you little sneaky little shit? You want a piece of me, I'm right here. But leave him out of it. And to that, Arcade responds by saying, shame on you, Wolverine, how could I possibly leave out your co-star? He's practically the title character in this little game I call Short Fuse. And on that page, we see Wendigo tied to a chair with several innocent people sitting across from him. Now following that, we transition over to what the Wendigo was going through. And as he sat tied to his chair, Arcade went on to say, those restraints are a special vibranium alloy even our big boy can't break. That chair is loaded with all sorts of fun toys designed to force a flight response through pain. And to top it all off, we're pumping the poor schmuck full of hunger-inducing drugs. So, how much torture can the Wendigo take before he loses it completely and starts biting off heads? Our totally voluntary and definitely not abducted studio audience is dying to find out. The Wendigo spawns are on a timer. 5 minutes of bloody agony, then he's free. And for funsies, I've set up mics along your path so he can hear you being hurt. Figure that'll give him that extra little push over the edge. So, what do you think, hero? Can you find your new sidekick before he snaps and makes a meal out of those fine folks? Guess we'll find out. Now with Arcade's agenda made clear, Wolverine continued to move as the ground opened under his feet and his narration stated, I've faced Arcade enough times to know most of his tricks. As I follow Leonard's scent, I can practically predict where the pits and blade traps will be. But what I found in the next room, I wasn't ready for. The room was made up to look like the laboratory where the Weapon X experiments were performed on me. And any idiot can see what Arcade's doing here. Digging into my traumas to throw me off. Mocking my past to make me lose focus. And it works like a fucking charm. And it didn't matter that this is just Arcade's sick cartoon version. Don't matter that my rational mind knows he wants me to rage out. Just because you know someone's pushing your buttons doesn't mean those buttons stop working. But then a whiff of Leonard's fear breaks through the angry haze. The kid needs me, the people Arcade nabbed need me. And that's more important than clawing at old ghosts. I cleared my head and picked up the scent of Leonard's fear again, and realized it's coming through the crack of a hidden door. The kid's fear and rage are so strong I can smell them across the building. That's when I remember a little detail Arcade dropped earlier. I'm mic'd. And at that moment, Wolverine decided to use that little piece of information to his advantage and called out to the Wendigo and said, "Hey, can you hear me, kid? I want you to focus on my voice. I know you're going through hell right now, but I also know how damn strong you are. You are not the Wendigo. Don't know if you can see, but Arcade's putting me through the paces too, baiting me with the parts of my past that hurt the most." And just as he was saying that, he stumbled into a wooden cabin that resembled the one he used to live in with one of his previous loves. So as he looked on, he continued to narrate, saying, "Silver Fox, she loved me with a warmth I didn't deserve and couldn't live without. Until Sabretooth murdered her. It ain't really her, of course. Just another robot. But Arcade even figured out how to make it smell like she did. Little creeps as sadistic as they come. Which is why I've got to stop him from hurting anyone else." And with crazy reflexes, Wolverine jumped over the robot and said, "Leonard, Arcade knows how to push buttons. Bring out the worst in people. Take this robot here, made up to look like my lost love, Silver Fox. Wired to explode if I touch it. We all feel trapped by our past sometimes, kid. Gotta remind ourselves there's always a way out. I just want you to breathe and to think. I know you've been through some stuff. I ain't gonna blow smoke and tell you it doesn't matter. People use your past to hurt you. But your past ain't your whole story. You got blood on your hands, you don't pretend it ain't there. You look hard at it. Learn its scent, then you promise yourself to do better." Following that outpouring of emotion, Wolverine went on to narrate saying, "Arcade's good, but some of his intel's old. Jean's a good friend, but that's all. And Cyclops and I settled our differences years ago. All the time I'm flapping my gums, I'm checking the walls for hollow spots and following the scent of Leonard's fear. Of his blood. Whatever his body looks like, he's a teenager. And there ain't a scent in the world that hits harder than that of a scared, bleeding kid. But it'll be damned if that don't make for perfect tracking. Bingo." And just like that, Wolverine ripped his claws through the wall as Arcade said, finding the weakest wall in the building. "Using my microphones to try to rally your pal. You're a resourceful old hairball, I'll give you that. But I'm not sure your little pep talk is gonna be enough to stop the show." So with Wolverine now on the scene, he instantly tries to check in on the kid just for his restraints to pop loose. Because according to Arcade, it looked like his 5 minutes were up. And like a cannon to the face, the kid backhanded the crap out of Logan, which led to a battle between friends. And as they fought, Wolverine's narration said, "I try to beat some sense into the kid, hoping the shock will snap him out of it. But the fighting just serves to get my bloodlust going. I managed to sheath my claws and pull myself back from the edge. It ain't easy. Still, I've got to show Leonard he can do the same. So I decided to try something different and a lot more dangerous." So with his hands above his head, Wolverine showed he was unarmed and said, "No more, kid. I'm not gonna fight you anymore. I'm gonna help you get your head out of the fight. Claws are sheathed, hands are up. If you're really just a monster now, here's your chance. I'm wide open. But I'm willing to bet Leonard is still there. And Leonard, you've proven already that you're stronger than your bloodlust. So show him bub. Show that little circus freak who you really are." And just as Logan thought he broke through, the Wendigo hit him right in his face. So with the ass whipping kicking off, Logan narrated to himself saying, "I'm the best there is at what I do, but one thing I ain't good at is taking a punch without swinging back. The animal in me fights to come out. But with the kid this close, my senses are flooded with his fear and desperation. I use those as beacons and take the blows. Maybe not my brightest idea." So as Logan sat in a pool of blood, Arcade just went on laughing as he said, "Oh, this is too rich, I have outdone myself this time. That's right, you absolute animal, it's dinner time." And right before the Wendigo could do the deed, Wolverine called out and shouted, "Don't let him win." Now this was just what Logan needed to say to get the ball rolling, because Leonard started to fight for domination, and immediately turned his attention to Arcade as Wolverine said, "The kid has learned a new word. What are you going to do now, freak show?" So in a fit of rage, Arcade shouted, "I'm so glad you asked," as he pressed a button, and continued to say that there's safety glass finished with adamantium dust. Your claws can cut through it, but it'll take some time. Meanwhile, that tank is being filled with the most volatile, fast-acting acid on the planet. But hey, your healing factor means you've got a whole minute or two before you're nothing but skeleton. Will that be enough time for you to cut through the glass? No one knows. That's the thrill of live programming, you can never know." And right as he said that, Leonard came crashing through the window, confronting Arcade face to face. So with death closing in on him, Arcade shouted, "You big ugly hairball, you weren't supposed to make it up here." I had to use all my adamantium dust on the little hairball. And like a beast, the Wendigo had Arcade in his teeth as his attention was pointed towards Wolverine. So with the tank filling, Wolverine continued to narrate, "My claws scratched the tank's glass, but cutting through it's agonizingly slow. I need a hammer, not a knife. But I just plain can't punch as hard as the kid can. I can feel the acid dissolving my skin, it hurts like hell. In another half minute, it'll be eating away all my flesh, then my organs." Arcades is a psycho, but he knows everything there is to know about death traps. I'd be screwed if he knew anything about people. The kid is more in control than Arcade gave him credit for. Came after me instead of testing the little twerp. Between his bashing and my cutting, we should be able to break free. And once open, the acid came pouring out as Logan continued to narrate. The Wendigo shields me as the acid rushes over us, letting his flesh get melted away in place of mine. And then he drops dead. My own body's on fire, but I push past the pain. Leonard's heartbeat is gone, and I can't hear him breathing. Doesn't make sense, the acid wouldn't do this. What the hell is this? And right when the Wendigo was gone, a bright light started to shine as the kid within regained his previous life. So with the kid back to normal, Wolverine continued his narration saying, "Arcade's long gone by the time we get to the control booth. Used some kind of god-awful smelling cotton candy spray to cover his scent. Guy's a planner, I'll give him that. Another psycho that hurts people to get to me is out on the loose because I didn't put him out of commission. Really batting 1,000 lately. I help the civilians find their way out of the building. Can't bring myself to meet their traumatized gazes. Still calling today a win, the Wendigo died saving me. But Leonard lived. I don't understand a damn thing about the so-called northern gods, but it looks like they decided the kid earned a second chance. I'd say he's earned that and then some." With that out there, we then fast forward a few days later in Minneapolis, with Leonard and Logan standing outside his mother's home. And as they stood there, the boy asked if Logan was sure he couldn't repay him, to which Logan answered by saying, "Just promise to call me if you ever start feeling the monster coming back. Also keep you city ass out of the wilderness until you know what you're doing." With that said, the kid knocked on the door and was warmly met by his mother, who was over the moon to see him again. And after a heartfelt reunion, the kid introduced Wolverine as the man who saved him. And once inside, we once again get another narration saying, "I stayed for dinner and am damn glad I did. Been ages since I had a proper home-cooked meal. I don't know why they took Leonard away from his mom, but I can make guesses. The lady's clearly lived a life. Made some mistakes. But any idiot can see the love between the two of them is honest and strong. Again and again, she says she's glad to have Leonard home because kids need their moms. I nod and pretend the words don't rip me up inside. I'm luckier than most ex-soldiers. Healing factor means I ain't got old wounds that start hurting again out of nowhere. Not on the outside, anyway. But some wounds I got before I became a soldier. Before I even became a man. As soon as my mutation emerged, my mom called me an animal and cast me out of the house. Then she took her own life. On Mother's Day, when people start going on about everything their moms did for them, I get real quiet. I help Leonard with the dishes before hitting the road. Not high on other folks cleaning up my mess. I make him promise again that he'll call me if he starts feeling the Wendigo's influence return. Following a hug, we then transition over to Logan in his motel room, and once there, he narrated, "That night, I get a 6-pack and a motel room. Offer to stay at Leonard's was kind, but those two need some time alone. And so do I. I need the quiet to figure out my next moves. The adamantine is still out there, and now I." But before he could finish his thought, someone knocked on his door. Which prompted Logan to continue to narrate, "Somebody knocking at the door. Wouldn't be anything wrong with that if they had a scent. But I didn't smell anyone approaching or leaving. Didn't hear anyone either." And once the door was open, Logan spotted a letter on the ground, and after he picked it up, he began to read it. And it went as follows, "My dearest and most precious James. I have been told that you now answer to the name Logan. The significance of that choice racks my heart with quiet force as it was my treacherous hand. Still, I find it impossible to think of you as anything other than my sweet and loving James. So James, I shall call you in the missive. I know, beloved boy, that my horrid treatment of you has rendered void any claim I might have to your familiar loyalties. But our family's enemies are closing in on me, and I cannot face the threat they pose alone. So, though I've no right to do so, I must write on this ominous feeling evening to ask for your help. I don't doubt that you resent me deeply and that your first impulse will be to refuse me. But I hope at the least that you will make some time to meet again after all these years. if only to learn why I was forced to treat you so poorly, as well as the circumstances of my remarkable, nay, miraculous survival. Now with this bombshell letter delivered, Logan's head started to spin as he narrated. I damn near collapse as memories from my earliest days flood my senses. Feeling I've buried for more than a century, come clawing out of their graves. Every rational part of me knows it's impossible. But scent ain't rational. And the letter in my hand smells like the very first scent I ever took in. The smell of Logan's mother, your remorseful and repentant mother, Elizabeth Howlett. And with that said, this issue of Wolverine comes to an end. Now down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.